Hi guys, welcome back to another episode of Ladies Who Impact. Today we have a very special guest. I'm honored to have Dr. Emily Gafney. She's a mother, she's an educator, and she is the founding coordinator of Professionalism and Ethics at LAU. And she is someone who dedicated her life to the importance of education and reading. So, with no further ado, hello. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for coming, Amjad. I'm
a
so
pleasure.
happy to have you. For those who are watching and they don't know, Miss Emily was my English teacher in high school. And she has been a huge source of motivation ever since for reading. And she used to always motivate people to read, remember? And you started Reading Happens at school. So she used to have like a book cupboard, right? With wheels.
Yeah, I couldn't believe that the school didn't have a library for older students. The library was in the elementary school, and it was just such an important thing to me. And I was raised reading, especially reading fiction. And here, I just wanted to bring that element into my teaching. And the fact that reading can be fun.
Exactly.
Now my mother-in-law, when she sees my kids with books, she says, look at them studying. Like, they're not studying, they're having fun. This is a source of enjoyment for them.
Of course, yeah. And I want to talk about like what inspired you to pursue a career in education and eventually earn like a PhD in philosophy.
Yeah, so I tried to escape education for a while, knowing that my dad is in education. He was a school principal and an educational consultant. Yeah,
okay.
He has his PhD in education as well. My mom was a school librarian and has her master's in education. My sister has a PhD and works at a university. Yeah, she's an associate vice president at Fordham University. So it's in my DNA. Okay. And I tell you guys a story, I'm sure I told it to you before, about being in college and not knowing my major. And I had a part-time job at a school, and I was reading a book to a bunch of little kids, like 6-year-olds, and one of my professors was watching and said, like, this is what you're meant to do. So it wasn't something that I chose so much as it's something that, and you know from being in my class, if you come to LAU and you observe me in my class, you'll know that it's like, it's who I am, it's my identity. So it wasn't a choice.
And like, how did it start? Like when the professor told you, like how old were you when?
I was in my first year in college. So
super young.
I was 18 and I switched my major to education, and then all my degrees and all
my experience.
What
were you studying at first?
I was pre-vet.
What?
Yeah.
What?
I wanted to be a veterinarian. Yeah.
No way.
So now I still love animals. You know, I have a dog. I will always have a dog. But that ended up being more of just a hobby and a passion than a career.
Wow. I never knew that.
Yeah.
Like ever.
Yeah.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
So you've had many influential roles, like being a coordinator of art history and English to advising at Salisbury School, and now your current role at LAU. So how have your various roles like shaped your whole journey and your views on reading and its importance?
Yeah, so reading is sort of like the common thread. Whether I'm teaching, I've taught 3-year-olds, and now I teach adults, and this is like the common thread throughout all of it. And when I'm sitting with colleagues, when I'm in a classroom, that is something that's always important to me, and something I hope can be a topic of conversation in my classes or outside. The career trajectory is I'm just like fiercely career oriented, almost to a fault, where I have to really focus on balancing my personal life and my family life with my career. So anytime I start at a new place, I'm looking up. So I started at LAU a year ago now, as a part-time adjunct. Now I'm a full-time lecturer, got this coordination job. So I'm always like looking at my next steps, which is something about me. And then the reading aspect is sort of like what centers me. So amidst all of this ambition, when I personally read, or when I can talk about reading with others, it is sort of like a break from that like constant hustle.
Okay, and are you always reading a book?
Okay, so as you know, I have 2 toddlers and a puppy. So finishing books has become much more challenging.
Of course.
I probably read 3 or 4 a year now, contemporary novels mostly, because that's my joy in reading is in reading fiction. I read a lot of academic texts for work, So when I'm reading for pleasure, it's reading, stories.
Okay, and do you have like any favorite book of all time, like that you would probably read over and over?
I have a list of,
List?
yeah, I have a list of 10 that are like have been really influential in my life. I'm right now, I've read a lot of Haruki Murakami, which is like magical realism. And I imagine that I'll be going back, like Kafka on the Shore. I'll go back and reread those, I think,
You like
when
them?
I finish all of his, his entire collection.
And from your perspective, how does reading influence a student's like overall educational experience?
It's so important in so many ways. I cannot emphasize it enough, especially in Lebanon, because it's not something that is maybe instilled in families or culturally. But I know I have a colleague who just did his master's in Cambridge, and he graduated from LAU a couple of years ago. And he said when he talked to other international students, he felt this sort of like gap in his understanding because he hadn't read certain texts.
Enriched his mind.
Yeah, that they assumed he would have read, and that this is my like defense of fiction all the time. But when you read a story, unlike watching it on the TV, the narrative is happening in your mind because you're reading it and picturing it in your head instead of. So you're inserting yourself into someone else's mind and body and experiences in a way that is unique to literature.
That's so nice. Amjad, that's so true. Actually.
It is. And I defend fiction all the time because people say I love to read, but I read articles, or I love to read and I read nonfiction. Because why would you read fiction? It's fake. It's a story that's made up, which might be true. Your dreams are also fake. Your imagination is also fake if that's the way you're going to, if those are the parameters that of how you define reality. But there's something very valuable in building emotional intelligence and empathy, even if it's not a real story, to insert yourself into a contrived situation and see what it might feel like. You're growing as a person, as a thinker, as a communicator.
I remember even at school, like even though like I would have loved it if the system was different, but because we used to memorize everything. Yeah. It was about passing, not like but like I remember even the stories that we used to read, like in class, let's say we'd read, like let's say this week we would read these 10 pages. I remember reading more than that because like I can't wait till next week,
like you get immersed in it. With good books you do, and it's as I said, it's an experience that's sort of unique to that setting because you don't get the same experience. Okay, watching episodes, sure, you continue, but it's for a different reason. It's the entertainment is purely external. Whereas reading, it becomes an internal process.
And that's where we see like a lot of readers, like sometimes you read a book and then you'd go watch the movie and then people go crazy, like that's not what happened in the book.
Exactly, because that's not how you experienced it.
That's why like a lot of people, like I know, like they would go like this movie that just came out, It Ends With Us. I don't know if you watched it.
I didn't watch it, but
so a lot of people like read the book and they like go super angry and like it's not like the book, and I don't know what. And then in my head, I was like, it's not that big of a deal. But when I read the book after watching the movie, I understood, and it's exactly what you said, because it's the experience that you have while reading, and then you come and watch something that's completely different. It's like, what?
I know.
And like with the rise of digital media, a lot of people still like they argue that reading books is becoming less and less important. So, what's your take on the relevance of reading in like our modern day-to-day?
Yeah, I think like especially when we're analyzing contemporary culture, we look back for answers before we look forward, right? So historically, it's been really important to maintain and cultivate language. And I think that changes a little bit. Now we have sort of this digital media culture, right? But it will always be important to tell stories. We've always told stories, and it'll always be important to maintain our language. So if you focus on those two aspects, I think we'll never lose reading. With publishers now, if you write a novel, they're saturated with manuscripts. People are still writing, people are still reading, people are still purchasing books. So it might be a generational thing. I think in your age bracket, there's not maybe a whole lot going on, but if you broaden that out to different age brackets and to like a global landscape, I think that there's still value.
A kid, definitely.
I mean, I know there should be, but I think there still is.
Like, I'm the type of person, of course, I spend my income on clothes, but like, I also spend a great deal on books. I'm not joking. Maya was with me last time. I swear, I got like 8 books.
Yeah, same.
I just want to have them. So like once I'm done, I can hop on to the next,
Yes,
you know?
yes, I agree.
I love
feel
it. It's like my therapy.
yes, it's valuable to have books and to have books that you can choose from. And for me, I feel like it's not something I buy and that it's mine to keep. I'm always giving them away. As soon as I finish it, I give them to people. And I have like my office at LAU is stacked with novels. And if people come in, I just had a student yesterday who's like, nobody wants to talk to me about reading. All my friends just want to talk about like their girlfriends. And I want to, so I said, look, pick something, you know, I have like all different genres. And so I'm still doing it. And that's where I find the value is not just in like the personal experience, but in the shared experience.
Of course, because it's like a ripple effect, you know, like you start with it and then you start affecting those around you and they affect those around them.
Exactly.
Wow, that's so beautiful. And how do you think reading fosters empathy and ethics, particularly in the context of your work now at LAU?
Yeah, so as I said before, it's this experience of inserting yourself into someone else's, not just experience, but into the way someone else might think and respond in different situations. And that can really build out this understanding of, so ethics is like moral principles for an individual and for a community. If you look at how different people respond, you can start to break down maybe these constraints, these barriers that you had already established. This is what's right, this is what's wrong. And maybe some of it is somewhat universal, but maybe it's tribal. Maybe it's what your religion says. Maybe it's what your family says. Maybe it's just the common knowledge in your region. But when you read and you don't just say, everyone knows other people have opinions. It's different from me talking to you about our different beliefs. If I'm reading your first person account of going through something, it's not you telling me, it's me being you in that moment.
Okay.
So then I can really understand how ethics has this personal dimension.
Wow.
And I have to do that in my work because having an ethics office in Lebanon, which is by default surrounded by corruption. LAU is an incredible institution, but it's in the heart of a failing state with a corrupt government, right? None of this is a secret. So I have to start with like ethics being like just a personal, like giving moral consideration based on a value system and then build it out before I could even think about policy.
Okay, wow, that's amazing. And how did like you get the idea to do that?
So in one of my previous experiences, I had difficulty at an institution with their professionalism. It actually had to do with sexual harassment, and it's one of the reasons I left that institution. And I had it in my mind that this is one of my career goals now, is to help foster ethical and professional work environments. And so I reached out to our Title IX office last year saying like, I think you do really great work. You know, Title IX is sort of the American law that prevents discrimination in the workplace and education, really across the board. And we have an office at LAU because it's an American company. So I reached out to the director saying, you know, just this is an area of interest. Let me know if I can help you. I also do professional development. And she then mentioned my name to our now former president of the university, Dr. Mawad. He's going to be leaving in a couple months. So we all got together, you know, little me dressed better than this with the president of the university, like, but basically saying that it was one of his goals, especially before he left, to found this office.
That's amazing.
So he instilled me as the founding coordinator before leaving, and now I'll be working with our incoming president, who
I'm so proud of you.
Sounds amazing. So yeah, I really hope to make it something. Yeah.
You're already making something.
I hope.
I swear, I'm telling you, since I was 15, and now we're like 10 years later, and you're still making bigger and bigger change and a bigger impact, and that's amazing.
You know, people used to say like, why are you a teacher? It's sort of like a low quality job, you know, or it doesn't have a huge amount of respect sometimes, especially with elementary school teachers, which is so awful because they work so hard. But in my answer is always that like, I never waste a day. I'm not sitting in an office thinking like, why am I at work? Not 1 minute of my day.
Wow.
It's always valuable. Whether I'm student facing, whether I'm doing my work in my office, it's always valuable. So I don't feel a minute of my time is wasted.
That's amazing. You know, and I think that's because you also did what you love the most.
Exactly.
And this is why you feel this.
Exactly.
I think this is the richest thing anyone
I'm passionate about it. I say to everyone, I'm sure I told it to you on our first day of class, that I love my job. I'm not doing it for the pay. I'm not doing it for the benefits. I'm not doing it for the hours. I love what I do. And then I say it on the last day.
It's so funny because 2 podcasts ago, I had a guest and we were talking about like we gave this example that how important and valuable it is to have these instructors that come into the class not just for the sake of, like, I open the book, I have to teach them this today, okay, bye, yalla, and they leave. It's more than that. It's the value you bring. It's the connection you have with the students, because you're actually, if you think about it, we spend most of our time at school than at home at that time. So you're raising a new generation.
Exactly. It's a responsibility. It's so important.
That's amazing. Amjad, I'm like, and okay, so in our fast-paced world today, how can parents and educators push their children and young adults into reading more? Like, what are some tips and tricks that you could probably share?
Okay. The first thing is that everybody has time. If you think about how much time you spend watching TV, and I tell myself this all the time.
Or the time on the phone.
The time on your phone, scrolling, doom scrolling or whatever it is. The first thing I say is you do have the time. Look at how you're spending your time. Look at your screen time. This will be one. So to build a habit, you have to do something for 3 days and then for 30 days. So pick a time, pick a book, something you're interested in. And I try to do this with my kids too. The first step also is just having them around. Like when we moved into our house, I built a bookshelf floor to ceiling with a ladder that comes down, like Belle in the Beauty and the Beast. And my husband's filled with DVDs and stuff. I'm like, no, this is for books. So I filled it, the top shelf is all my stuff and the bottom shelves are all the kids' stuff. So first thing, they have to see them around. And sometimes they pick them up. You'll see Roman, my 4-year-old, will pick up an art history book, or you have to hold them in your hands and just know that it's a familiar object. And then you sit down and read. My goal, and I implement this not every day, but my goal is to have us all read before bed. I read to the kids before bed, definitely. Every day, 3 books before bed, each kid. Always. This is something that I'll never not do, no matter how tired I am. But I would love...
Because you're instilling this habit since their childhood.
Exactly.
So
that's
now
what my
when they grow
did.
up, exactly.
And it's not just for literacy. And, they say in the US, you should read 1,000 books to your kid before kindergarten. So 1,000 books in 5 years. I know we've surpassed this already. But it's not just because of the literacy skill. It's building the habit. And if you start that, just like any other habit.
Appreciating the value that
and I want them to see me do it, which is where I need to kind of step up a little bit. There's so many beautiful children's books. I try to do it seasonally. So I have a basket of books that's outside of the living room, that's in the the salon area, that are seasonal. So now it's all back to school books. So I it gets them excited for the next season. Yeah, exactly. So that and I get books that are related to their interests. Like my 2-year-old, he's cars and trucks. So we look at books of cars and trucks, or tactile books that have flaps and stuff like this, because he's young. My 4-year-old, he really likes animals. So I try to get things related to their interests or related to Halloween is coming up, Thanksgiving's coming up, Christmas is coming up, things
but that takes effort.
I have files of books, seasonal books, and I rotate them every month.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Wow.
I know, my husband thinks I'm nuts.
No, you're not nuts, but that's I love the passion that you have.
You put effort into parenting, just like you put effort into work.
Exactly.
It's not something you do passively, and it's exhausting.
Of course.
And sometimes I'm like, this is so intense. I don't know. Does everyone know how intense it is? But it's these formative years are so important. This time where education starts at home now. So it's really my responsibility.
Of course.
And then for adults, again, I have a whole list, but I encourage the same. Start with something that you're interested in, and that's what'll make it easier. For me, novels, contemporary novels, magical realism. I think everybody should read Elena Ferrante's. It's a set of 4 novels, starting with My Brilliant Friend. I'll give it to you. I have it at home. So, but for me, that's there. If you're looking for storytelling, you can't do better. But everyone's going to have something different. Of course, a different answer to that. So I encourage everybody just to go to Antoine or to Malik's or whatever, and just look at the shelves, and whatever speaks to you, whatever looks like, hey, that could be my thing. Start, and don't stop until you're 50 pages in. At 50 pages,
it's starting. I get what you mean.
It's like watching the first episode, and then you can't judge something based on the pilot, because nobody knew what they were doing. The first 50 pages is nothing. Like, you have to get past that. And if you get past that and you don't love it, try something else.
Exactly.
It shouldn't be a punishment to finish.
Of course, yeah,
but
of course.
typically, if it's something that's engaging and well written, by 50 pages,
You'll
it'll
be
take
hooked.
care of itself. Exactly.
And I have a question. You know the quote that says, like, don't judge a book by its cover. Like, what do you say about that?
Yeah, I mean, it's marketing.
But it
Titles
plays a
and
role.
covers. It plays a role for sure,
You know?
and it can be helpful. Or not. It depends. But you have to know that, like, it's not necessarily representative of what's in the book.
Yeah, of course.
Like, take both pieces of information.
Yeah, exactly. What I do is, like, if it's a book that I don't know or haven't heard of, I'll read the back of it.
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
To take an
or
idea.
read a page or two and see if you like the style of writing.
Exactly.
And that,
Exactly. And, like, how has reading shaped your personal life?
Oh, that's a good question. Reading shaped my personal life. I think that I am always looking for like-minded friends, and it's hard, especially here. It was hard. But, like, Miss Elise, who is now the director, at Sabbath, has been my best friend for 10 years, we talk about what we're reading, and I gave her Life After Life, Kate Atkinson, and then I gave her Americana, and we were trading books back and forth and talking about it. I also try to be part of book clubs, which was one of the benefits of COVID, was that suddenly we had all these, like, Zoom book clubs, and I could participate. Here in Lebanon, I didn't really have a book club, but now that everything was on Zoom,
you could.
I could connect with people internationally, and that really kept me sort of abreast of what was being published, and it helped me read things that I wouldn't necessarily pick for myself.
Okay, makes sense.
So yeah, socially, I always try to, like, at least find somebody who will sit down with me, and one of the first questions will be like, what are you reading right now? Because I love that. And it's kind of hard for me to find here.
I know, it's very hard. Like, I can relate so much, because it's the same with me and, like, my entourage.
Yeah.
Now I'm gonna ask you some questions.
Okay.
It's this or that.
Oh yes, okay, I'm ready.
Are you ready? Okay. Physical books or ebooks?
Physical books, always.
Akid, same. Yes.
Have to.
Classics or contemporary literature?
There's, like, not a this or that. I feel like it's each in its own time.
Okay.
It depends on my mood.
Okay. Art history or English literature?
Oh, art history, 100%.
Morning reader or night reader?
If I could, morning, but it becomes the night, because it's when I have the time. But I am a morning person.
Okay. Shakespeare or Hemingway?
Okay, Shakespeare's in a category by himself. There's no comparison. I love Shakespeare. Hemingway or Faulkner, like, those would be contemporary Hemingway. I love Hemingway. Okay.
Poetry or prose?
Prose. Poetry, I have, like, a love-hate relationship with
poetry.
Yeah, I don't know. Sometimes I read a poem and I'm really into it, but a lot of the time I'm like, I don't know about this.
Teaching or learning?
Learning.
Wow.
Because as a teacher, I'm learning. There is no teaching.
Wow.
We're just all learning. And I tell them this is a learning community.
I
learn every single time I come out of a class. I learn something new about how to teach. So all of it's a learning process.
Okay, I love that. Hardcover or paperback?
Hardcover if possible.
Discussing books or writing about them?
Discussing them. Long
novels or short stories?
Long novels. I'm rarely in the mood for a short story.
Professional ethics or educational philosophy?
Oh gosh, both. I can't give up either. I love them equally.
Khalas, deal. We'll give you both. Coffee shop reading or reading at home?
Coffee shop, because at home I'll, like, start the laundry, or like, coffee shop I don't have an
you're like there to read.
Yeah, exactly.
Library or bookstore?
Library, if it's like an American library.
Yeah, I know. We don't have one here.
My town's library is so beautiful.
I know.
It's, like, the best place to sit and read. And my kids love it. The kids section, I posted pictures of my kids at the library. Beautiful.
I wish we had one here in Lebanon.
This is my mom's, like, she has all these ideas for how to fix Lebanon. She's like, I'm going to come and open a library, but you need funding and whatever. But it would be great if we could someday have this.
Yeah, because I feel like the country, like, lacks this. Like I feel like people don't really get the value of it here.
Yeah, it's
like
cultural,
just like a thing.
Yeah, but it's also access. Like, even if you have a family that loves to read, you have to pick a month in advance the book and order it from the shop.
Exactly.
And and how do you know what you're buying? Like, If you go to a library, there's a designated librarian. You can ask them. All the books are there, and it's free. Like you lend them. So
we actually have one in my hometown.
Really?
Yeah, but I don't think it's as like functional as it was.
There's no
but
funding.
I remember my mom used to take me and my siblings when we were kids, and it was like, I remember like I'd go inside and like I didn't know which book to start with.
Yes, exactly. That's how
I
it was
remember
for
the
me.
feeling. So before we wrap up and close our episode, for those that are looking to rekindle like a love for reading, what advice would you give them to make reading a habit?
Yeah, so again, it's like just go to the bookstore, see what looks interesting, commit to buying it, and then 3 days and 30 days, 50 pages at least.
Okay.
It's easy. It's a formula. For those math and science people, it's a formula. I'm always trying to like, cater to my audience.
Yes, of course. And if you could leave our listeners with one lasting message about the importance of reading, what would it be?
Gosh, you just have to commit to doing it. I mean, it's like you're exercising. It's nutrition for your mind.
It's a practice.
It's a practice. It's part of your wellness. So consider it like exercise, like eating, 3 times a day.
Taking your meds.
Drinking water. Yes, exactly. It should be like this. It shouldn't be in the category of entertainment. It should be in the category of like
and
general wellness.
Why do you think that it's important? We know it's important, but I want to see.
It has that level of importance to me because this is how you will connect better with other people. It feels like an individual activity, but it's actually community building. And I feel like, especially in Lebanon, that's what we really need.
Yeah. Thank you.
It's a pleasure.
I'm so happy that you joined, I swear.
I'm so happy that you are doing this.
Thank you.
I was telling you earlier that this is the best part of my job. It's not just in the classroom, but when I get to see you guys doing amazing things.
Thank you, man.
10 years later,
and be sure, even if I didn't know it back then, like you did actually play a role in me reaching like where I am. That's what I believe. I really believe that each person that we cross paths with is meant to like add something to your life.
And there are pieces. We have pieces of each other.
Exactly. I'm so happy you came.
It's a pleasure.
Amjad, thank you, Miss.